Right. Now, I'm your official guide. Now, before I show you around, I'll just fill you in on a few details, as we call them. As you can see, we're standing in the hall of the Haworth Parsonage, where Haworth's parson, the Reverend Bronte, lived here with his daughters, the famous Bronte sisters. Now, alas, no longer with us. But, of course, they have left us the novels, which I've not read, being more of a Dick Francis nut. Now, if you'd like to pass by me into the parlour, whoops, mind my vaccination. Now, this is what was called in those days a parlour, somewhat similar to our lounge-type sitting room affair in modern terminology. Now, I'm afraid the wallpaper on the walls isn't the original wallpaper of the original period to which we're referring to. It's actually Laura Ashley. But I think it does give some idea of what life must have been like in a blustery old Yorkshire community of long ago. Now, the portrait on the wall is actually of Charlotte Bronte, one of the famous Bronte sisters, and of course to us she may seem a rather gloomy-looking individual. But you must remember that these days she'd have had a perm or blusher, or I suppose even drugs would have helped to maintain a more cheerful attitude. In fact, she'd probably not be dead if she was alive today. Now, we can all budge back into the hall. That's right, we're going through into the Reverend Bronte's study. Now, this is a typical study in which to do studying. As you can see, there's a table, a chair. Oh, my poncho, I've been looking for that. And I like to imagine this elderly old gentleman sitting hunched over a sermon, probably thinking, where's my cocoa? I suppose those darn girls are in the middle of a chapter, something like that. He may have been thinking, we just can't be sure. Of course, he died eventually, unfortunately. We must remember this is an extremely exposed part of the United Kingdom. I mean, it's May now, and I'm still having to slip that polo neck under my bolero. And I think that in days of yore, those elderly persons did tend to give up and die that little bit more easily with not having bingo and such like to give them a purpose in life. Now, on the table, we see the Reverend Bronte's gloves. They tell us such a lot about him. He had 2 hands and he wasn't missing any fingers. We think these gloves were knitted by one of the famous Bronte sisters. I suppose their brother Branwell couldn't knit. And anyway, being an alcoholic, he'd never have been able to cast on, you see. Well, he might have been able to cast on, he'd never have been able to cast off. Now, if we can all hutch back into the hall and up the stairs, that's right, stopping at the lobby window, we're looking out over the graves to the hills beyond. And fairly clearly in the distance we can hear the wind wuthering. Now, that's an old Yorkshire word. Some other old Yorkshire words are parking and fettle. Now, if you're carrying up the stairs, that's right. Now, the room we're now standing in was originally Charlotte's mother's bedroom. In fact, Charlotte's mother died in here, and Charlotte died in here too. So better not stay too long. It's just my joke. Now, over there, in that glass case, you'll see what we call a day dress. That is a dress worn in the day, not at night. We think belonging to Anne or Emily, presumably not Branwell, unless he had more problems than history's prepared to tell us. A few dates for the date-minded. The Bronte family moved here sometime in the 19th century and lived here for quite a number of years. Now, as I say, Charlotte died in this room. Those are her slippers. And I like to imagine her in this room with her slippers on, dying. Now, if you go through the far door, that's right, yes, do move my moped. Yes. This room was at one time Branwell's bedroom. Now, I think people tend to forget about Branwell, that he was a fairly artistic person himself. Of course, he was lazy, conceited, and a dipsomaniac, so these days he'd probably been a television producer. Well, that's it, and can I just remind you that if anybody would like a souvenir to take home with them as a souvenir, we have a Bronte video games, body warmers, acrylic mitts, pedestal mats, feminine deodorants, and novelty tea strainers. Snacks and light refreshments are available in the Heathcliff Nosher Bar. So do feel free to sample our popular Bronte burgers. Or for the fibre-conscious, our Branwell Bronte burgers. Oh, finally, I have a little message for the Yorkshire Heritage Coach Party. Could they please reconvene at 2 in the car park, ready for this afternoon's trip, which is round at 3 Dark Satanic Mills, Emmerdale Farm, and Nora Batty's front room. Thank you.